Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Blast Away the Game Review. I want to thank all of you for tuning into our first tutorial in quite a while now. I do apologize about the gap between tutorials. I've had some personal stuff come up, the website has been extremely busy, so it's made it a little hard to do what I needed to on YouTube, but man oh man, am I glad to be back with you all. I have missed all of you. I love the comments that you all have been leaving towards the Warframe tutorials, whether it's negative or positive. It has definitely helped guide this tutorial to its place. Now, to get things started, we are going to be talking about Inaros. Even though he is an older frame, there's still a lot of people that are still picking him up. They're just now deciding to farm for him, or you're new to the game and he looks really cool, so you're learning how to play him. To start things out, we are going to be talking about his abilities. So, his first ability is Desiccation. Desiccation allows Inaros to blast enemies with a wave of cursed sand that will bind them into place and steals their health in order to regenerate his own health. This ability is affected by ability mods such as power, duration, and efficiency. So definitely take that into consideration when you're building your mods, but we will talk about that in another tutorial for him if you want a advanced tutorial, so you'll need to leave that in the comments. Then he has the ability Devourer. Devourer is his ability to hold enemies into place by trapping them using quicksand, and it draws them in so that he can devour them, which will allow him to regenerate his health and ultimately create a friendly sand shadow which actually has the health of the target he just devoured. Next up is his ability Sandstorm, which turns Inaros into a giant sandstorm that sucks enemies up and does a lot of damage to them while they're trapped there. And they cannot attack or anything. They're completely immobilized by Sandstorm. Then we have his ability Scarab Swarm, which is actually really cool. Scarab Swarm is Inaros' ability to sacrifice his health in order to gain armor that he can then shoot out in a conal fashion in front of him to regenerate his health and damage enemies. Now, the first ability is the one we're going to see on screen, which is Desiccation, which is his ability to shoot up a frontal cone of sand in front of him, blind his enemies, and steal their health. Now, one thing that is really cool about this ability is Inaros can use his melee weapon. As you can see, I have my melee out, and one-shot an enemy to completely regenerate his health. Now, you do need to note, he doesn't always do this ability. There is a chance he will not do it at all, and all you're going to end up doing is meleeing an enemy down. I have had a hard time getting this ability to allow me to do the melee trigger, but when I do it, it's awesome. It's one of the coolest things to watch because Inaros is just... man, he is an amazing Warframe. That's all I can say, is this is truly a really fun Warframe to use, especially when you get a grasp on his abilities. Now, the one thing you will need to know about Sandstorm is while it does have life steal, it's not going to do just a lot of life stealing if you're single targeting enemies. So the best time to use it is just like right there, big crowds. Because let alone will it lifesteal, you have a chance to actually lock in and do his instant kill melee, because enemies are blinded, they cannot see him, so you're going to be doing a stealth, basically a stealth kill, which is actually really cool for Inaros. It's one of the funnest things you can do for him, and just like right here where the red veil are coming in, it's a great opportunity to stun high level in very irritating enemies and control them. So Inaros has a lot of ways that he can control the battlefield, and he can even control the ebb and flow of combat to however he wishes. Because Inaros is capable of this, it definitely will give you a lot of sense into his basics. Just being able to blind large groups and control that ebb and flow is a really big advantage that you'll have, especially if when you start doing sorties or you start doing high level missions, and definitely void rifts. Next up is his ability Devour, which is the one I mentioned where he will trap a single target within confines of a sand trap, and it'll allow him to move to that target, devour their health, which means he will literally kill that target and create a shadow clone of them, which will only last for so long because they only have the health and the stats of the original target. As you can see here, my carrier is making things extremely hard. I am having a really hard time getting a target that I could devour because it's just annihilating these guys. But luckily I was able to get a couple of these off for the making of this tutorial. As you can see, I just drained an enemy of his health, healed up, and created a shadow clone. And the other corpus that aren't on my side took him out very quickly. So it is worth noting that your devour targets will pretty much get eaten alive rather quickly, and you'll have to definitely ensure that you are taking your time to devour so that you can regenerate your health and keep a sand shadow on the battlefield at all times. It really does help. Unfortunately, it is an ability that is harder to utilize when you're in large groups, and so definitely keep your eye on that and definitely get an idea of how to pace that ability out. Next we have Sandstorm, which to me is probably one of Inaros' most intriguing abilities and what really drew me into learning how to play him. This ability is where Inaros will literally turn into a giant sand twister. He will draw enemies into him and do damage over time, but also he renders those enemies that he sucks up completely useless. They can't attack, they can't do anything. They are completely immobilized, and a lot of the time they will die pretty quickly, so it is kind of a useful ability to have. Now, one thing you do need to note is while using Sandstorm, you are using energy per second. You cannot regenerate your health. The enemies that you pull in do not heal you by any means, so they can still do a lot of damage to you, and unfortunately there's nothing you can do about it. So you will need to pay attention to both your energy and your health, and just overall manage your time in Sandstorm and outside of Sandstorm. Last but not least is his final ability, Scarab Swarm. Scarab Swarm is where Inaros will sacrifice his own health to harden his armor with scarabs, and then can discharge that in order to deal damage over time and heal himself, but at the sacrificing of his health. Now, the really cool thing about this is it heals you for just as much health as you took in damage by casting it. So you'll heal up pretty quickly with one use. As you can see here, I'm draining almost a quarter of my health, if not right at a third even. So a little over a quarter of my health, in order to massive amounts of damage right in front of me and almost heal completely up. So do take note of when to charge up this ability and not charge up this ability, because Inaros does burn his own health pool, and if you use it at the wrong time, it can unfortunately leave you completely vulnerable to enemy attacks, and will leave you needing to use abilities such as Desiccation, as you saw me use there. You will have to learn how to Devour. You're going to have to learn how to use Sandstorm and not rely completely on Scarab Swarm, especially since you're going to definitely leave yourself in some bad shape if you don't. Now, I do know a lot of you are going to want to see an advanced tutorial for him. You'll want to know how to combo his abilities, what's the best way to combo them. Unfortunately, this is just a beginner's guide, and we will be talking that in another one. I do hope this video helps all of you that are starting to learn how to use Necros, have a generalized ability to understand what his abilities do, and hopefully look forward to an advanced tutorial. I do appreciate all of you tuning in. I'm your host here at Blast Away the Game Review, Dustin Murphy. If you like this tutorial, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you soon with a advanced tutorial for Inaros.